Okay guys, so today I want to talk about Copium. So Mannadium is one of my favorite decks. I used to play this a lot back when it was at full power. And one of the things that happened after Savage was banned, Baron was banned, and then most recently Appaloosa was banned, is even though these were generic monsters that lots of different decks were making, these were far more core to the Mannadium game plan than they were to lots of other decks' game plans, where they could just switch it out with something else and maybe the end board would be worse, but it was also just less generic. And it was definitely healthy for the game to get rid of all of those Omni Negates. But Mannadium kind of had to make Baron, both because you needed insulation against Nibiru going first, and because going second, the deck was an OTK deck, and so you needed the pop from the Baron, which was then protected by the Omni Negate from the Baron. Or Savage, for example, was naturally made with the Wanted engine, because the Jet Synchron that you would get from original Sinful Spoils and the Black Witch would turn into a Savage that would bring back your Scareclaw Lightheart usually. Could be something else, but usually it was this one. And then the Appaloosa was an excellent card in this deck because you could put so many bodies on field, and it was easier to go into a generic Link monster than to go into specific Synchro 10s. What was also cool about the deck is there were a number of different ways to play it. Many versions played, for example, like the triple Fenrir, often triple Raceoff, to get access to Scareclaw Kashtira, because this bridges into the engine because it's a Scareclaw monster that can bring you Lightheart, which kind of goes into the engine. Or there was the Prisma version where you couldn't play the Fenrirs, but you'd play Hero Lives and bring this out, and then this would be treated as a Visa Starfrost. And so the point was the deck was cool. And then I think it was Triff was probably the first person that found the Wanted synergy, where you naturally go through so many different field spells in basically every single combo that exists that instead of just wasting those, you could use them as a free send from the Wanted engine. And because this naturally helped you bridge into stuff like Savage or Appaloosa, there was really a high degree of synergy with the rest of your deck. You could also play cards like Souls, where you would again have free sends, and it wouldn't conflict with the Wanted package because you would have so many free sends that you could easily resolve both of them in the same turn. And then after all of those hits, Savage ban, the Baron ban, and then the Appaloosa ban, the deck kind of lost its soul because it didn't really have an end board that it could go to. And this is unfortunately, I think, still where the deck remains today. So this is more of like an exploration of how to know when you're coping and how much impact can just putting broken engines into another deck actually have. So for reference, if you've been following my recent videos, a lot of people have been complaining that when I show Azamina White Forest, there's not a huge amount of synergy between those two engines, for example. I'm not going to go into the details because I've covered that in previous videos. Or a lot of people just don't like putting Fiendsmith in everything because they think it's kind of boring or whatever. Now, the truth is, bottom line, that if you are playing a deck that isn't the best deck, probably just putting in more broken cards will make your deck better, even if there is absolutely zero synergy. So let's see what happens if we try to force this to work. I will show you a couple of replays. So I have some gameplay and then I have some lines, and show you the problem with this. And this is kind of like a good way, I think, to show you just because you like a deck and you really want to play it doesn't mean that it actually makes sense. Yeah, one of the first things that I just want to show you, though, before getting into the lines is Mannadium has often had issues with extra deck space, depending on the version that you're playing. And so putting in a bunch of Fiendsmith cards and then also some Azamina stuff is really a problem because you can't find space, for example, for like the Trisutka or the Amritara, which were natural parts of the combo. So that impacts some lines, like where your starter is the Ryzeal, and then it doesn't impact other lines. Like, for example, if you're just drawing the Scareclaw Reichardt. Last thing that I'll say about this is that Mannadium is typically not a hand trap deck, because I'm not going to go over the math on the probability calculator right now, but the math on drawing combinations of cards is far stricter than the math on just needing to draw a single starter. And so going above 40 is a really big deal in a deck like this, and so you usually don't have space for hand traps. Or back in the day, if it was enough to just play the standard Mannadium starters like the Ryzeal, the Calarium, maybe more of the other planets, some Scareclaw, Visas, Samsara, or Starfrost or whatever. Maybe you could get away with the rest of your deck just being hand traps, but we don't have the natural extra deck extensions to go into now. So, okay, let me show you some replays. So this is the first way that you can tell that you're coping, okay? So we have a hand where we just have Deception, okay? And so let's start with a basic Deception combo where we tribute a monster, and there's no synergy here because this card has to be destroyed, not tributed to be able to special. So we're just tributing this card in order to search the Hallowed Azamina. And then we're going for the slightly longer combo through Murcielago instead of just bringing out the Omni-Negate because we want some additional bodies on board. So we search the Wanted gives us the Witch sends, a random card from hand, and it gives us another Deception, which we will promptly activate so that it is face up when it was sent, and we can reset it in the end phase. Now we make Moon of the Closed Heaven. Again, this is just like the most value link 2 that you can possibly make to get these in the grave in order to use Hallowed to recycle this so that you can then bring out the Omni-Negate. Now here we get a draw. Now this is important because it will show you why this is Copium. So here we activate Hallowed Azamina, tribute the second Deception that we search, because remember we want to shuffle back one for a draw, and then we want the other one to reset itself. So now we have access to the basic line, so the extended Azamina line that also gives us the Wave High King Caesar. Okay, so right now, where we have gotten to is you can do this with any deck, If you have drawn Deception, you can do the extended Azamina line. It is not the same thing if you just draw the Witch or the Wanted itself, because then you've already used that card, and you can't just go into it through Murcielago. So you probably will be forced to just make the Omni-Gate immediately, and you won't have the extra bodies for the Wave High King Caesar. But with this combo, what happens if we draw our actual engine, right? So basically the question we're trying to ask ourselves is, yes, every single deck can use Deception to do exactly the same combo, but what about the deck that we're playing? Like, why would we combine these two things? So as I've shown you before, in this version, and I'm not saying that this is objectively the best way, this is just an exploration of using Mannadium, you must cut cards that you need. And I cut the Trisutka and the Amritara, which makes the Rium Heart a much worse card to have as your starter because it's really not a starter. But the Scareclaw Reichardt does actually get you into like a decent kind of resource cycle, where you can go into the Lightheart, which gives you the Reichphobia, and that can give you the Starfrost. And also the Scareclaw Arrival, which is basically just a +1 body. So we bring out the Starfrost by tributing the Lightheart, and because we now control Visa Starfrost, we can special once per duel the Lightheart from our grave. And so here's the problem. We've made a Little Knight, and we have +1 body here. So why? Why would we do this? So this is the first sign that what you're building is trash. And, maybe you could argue, and if you have any suggestions in the comments below for how you would meaningfully change the extra deck here, for example, or the main deck to enable like a better line that actually does Mannadium stuff, then I'd be curious to hear. But not having access to Appaloosa in particular is really a big problem. So, not only can any deck that draws Deception make these two cards, but any deck that can do almost anything at all can make Little Knight too. So this is trash. Okay, let's look at the other example. So let's say that we're going to go second. I'm just like passing turn to the AI here. So the AI summons a card and he attacks whatever. We just want something on board. So let's say now that we've drawn Deception and we've also drawn our engine. We use some of our non-engine to try to clear their board, and let's assume that we are playing here. By the way, if you're wondering, well, if you're going second, you're just going to be forced to make the Omni-Negate or to make Sol, which there's no space for, so it's really just the Omni-Negate here. The thing is that if they could interact with you and stop you from making the Omni-Negate, they're going to interact with Hallowed Azamina. If they do not interact with Hallowed Azamina, obviously it really depends on the board. There are more chances that you could go for the greedier play with Murcielago. For example, if you had successfully Raigeki'd or Lightning Stormed or Dark Hold or Dark Ruler or whatever. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we actually get to go through this line going second because we're playing a breaker deck. We try to do something similar where we do the basic line here, and we also make this card, just maybe in case we don't kill, but also because we have no space for any other route with the Fiendsmith cards. So now that we're going second, we go for a slightly different route where we want to actually OTK. And so here we're going to use the cross sheep, and this is, I'm not saying this is the most efficient line, I'm just showing you like some basic stuff that the deck could make. Where you would go like Unicorn and spin something, and then you would bring out the Vicious Astrolaud, popping something, and you could make access code and pop other stuff, and then you attack for game. And, you know, under the Sylvia, then it should be, you know, if you have successfully used the breaker against their board, you should either clear their board and then be sitting on Wave Hiking Caesar and maybe the Sylvia if you hadn't used it, or you'd OTK. So Mannadium is good at doing OTK lines, but if the deck does nothing useful going first, then it's not really worth playing. Okay, so now I've shown you those two like basic examples of what the deck can do. Let me show you some sample gameplay. So here is against Memento. I think this one I might be going first. Here I haven't drawn any of the Azamina cards, and what you might notice is that there's a huge difference between playing the Azamina stuff and playing the Fiendsmith stuff just because Closed Heaven exists. If you have to draw the Azamina cards, that just makes it less reliable, and I think overall worse than Fiendsmith, as long as you can afford the two bodies to make Closed Heaven. Also, if you happen to be playing a deck that naturally can fit in, what's it called, the Underworld Goddess, then that becomes even better because you can threaten potentially the effect of the Closed Heaven, and then either they respond to that and maybe like negate it, maybe they waste an Imperm or something because they think that you might get Closed Heaven for 2 cards on their field instead of 1. That could be an option. It's not the most amazing thing. Obviously, this is really just for making Requiem. So anyhow, here we get to the same point where we've done basically just the basic Azamina combo. And now we're trying to use the bodies that we have put in the grave to do something. And so here I make a very unimpressive board. So it's basically just the Azamina combo plus a Little Knight. And really the goal of this board, if you really wanted to force the Mannadium engine, would be, okay, so you make this basic stuff that anyone can do, and then the strength of the deck is supposed to be you have fueled your grave to the point where you can do some kind of Astrolaud OTK. Also, you may notice that I was quickly skipping through and I right-clicked Deception trying to reset itself, and that actually is a big deal because it's much harder to play on the crackback if you don't cycle your resources properly. So obviously I'm not going to use my Omni Negate if my Wave Hiking is live, and so I'm just trying to use the Wave Hiking first. Here I'm thinking that he's maybe going to go for the Guardian Chimera, or maybe he might, and so I just want to use the SP because I don't know if you'll have a way to chain block the Chimera, for example, and then I won't be able to Sylvia it. And even if I do Sylvia, this one just negates the effect. It doesn't also destroy it, so the Guardian Chimera would still be on field, and it might be able to, like, you know, run over some of my cards or whatever. So I just make sure that he can't make Chimera by moving the monsters off field, and so he instead makes the new card, the Creation King. So this one, if this card is fusion summoned, you can dump 3 from your deck or extra deck to the grave. So this is usually part of the resource loop. And then there's the quick effect where you can target an equal number of memento monsters you control, and cards your opponent controls destroy them. So that's like a, you know, pretty strong card there. And so I'm like, okay, and now I'm gonna negate that one and let him run over something. So he runs over this card, and now it comes to the crackback. And you'll see that you do the natural Azamina resource play where you shuffle back whatever was in your grave to get Hallowed back to your hand. But because I right-clicked in my end phase and did not reset Deception, it means that I don't get to start my main phase by just having a free Omni Gate on field. So I bring out the Engraver. You'll also notice that I'm not playing Chaos Angel because there's no space unless you want to cut a Vicious Astrolaud, in which case the OTK portion of the deck, which is like the only thing that's really preserved in this version, becomes a little bit weaker because this is not a once per turn card. So you actually very often will summon this twice in the same turn. So, or sometimes you'll use one if you're going first to help make your Synchro 10, and then when you're actually trying to OTK, you'll make another one. Also, quick note here, I've opted for Cheng Ying as my 10 instead of Chaos Angel because I think it's a little bit more flexible. And normally when you're making it, you are making it off of Astrolaud. And you also can often make it to where this is on field to trigger from the Astrolaud. And Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like Changing is probably a little bit more flexible. So here I think I just want to put some bodies on board because this is a link deck, by the way. So the wanted innovation back in the day when Triff was making this popular was to turn this into a link deck. So if you've been confused so far, or you're thinking like, oh, this is being played completely wrong, this is not the old school Mannadium Synchro or like the Mannadium Bishbalkin FTK deck. This is a link deck that is just using Mannadium cards to put bodies on the field. This is not the traditional Mannadium deck. So here I'm just like using up his resources and trying to go into an access code for the OTK, but he doesn't have anything to stop me from running over. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to show is actually against ryzeal. Now this is a deck that I would like to cover soon. I have not read the cards yet, so I actually don't know what the deck does right now. Because Rota is about to come out, I've not been looking into the crossover breaker stuff yet, but that will happen. So basically I just wait until my turn to try to read a few cards on the field and see like what I can play around or not play around. So he ends turn, and so he has a Dweller that he's used. He has, so this card, the field spell says, once per turn when an opponent's activated monster effect resolves, you can detach a material from a ryzeal XYZ monster you control, and if you do, negate that effect. So I know that he has a negation there that should be live because he has multiple XYZs. Then the duo drive. So this card is crazy. This is generic. It's 2+ level 4 monsters. So it's once per turn each. If this card is special summoned, you can attach a ryzeal monster from your graveyard to it as material. But during your main phase, you can detach 2 materials from monsters you control, and if you do, add 2 ryzeal cards with different names from your deck to your hand. It's not even like monsters, it's just cards. Like 2? That's crazy. So this card is crazy. And I'm thinking that the material here is really just so that he has something to detach, I think, for this. And then the Detonator. So the only thing that I know is that this is supposed to be part of their standard end board. So again, so this one is not generic. So this one has to be ryzeal monsters. So when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 card on the field. That's the activation procedure, destroy it. You can only use each of the following effects of Ryzeal Detonator once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can attach a monster from your grave to it as material. And if an XYZ monsters you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can attach a material from this card instead. So the last one I actually skipped over when I was playing, and I didn't realize that he could save itself. I thought he was just getting the pop. And then I knew that they had like a spell or a trap or something that I don't know if it's like a pop or a negate. So yeah, so you'll see that I don't draw any of the Azamina stuff, and I'm only playing 1 Engraver in the main deck anyhow because there's no space, and it's really just for the closed heaven line. So anyhow, I did not play this optimally, but I was initially thinking, let me just get a Visa Starfrost in the grave because this one, the Visa Samsara, this is the one that can shuffle from grave or banished, and so this one is like one of the better ones for your resource game. So I searched the Reichphobia, and then he pops that. So I was thinking I need to force this in some way, and maybe he doesn't know what my cards do because like who plays Mannadium, and so he's probably just going to see like, oh, he's activating a field spell that has to stay face up to resolve in order to search, so he might pop it, and so he does pop it. But I already have like the Reichardt, and so I can just special the Reichardt, and that would like give me the search. But he... so I think that he uses the field spell here. Does this actually show me in the log? Yeah. So he uses the field spell to perform the negation. And so now I'm thinking that he probably just has like the spell or trap or whatever that interruption is. But I had forgotten that this one, if a monster you control be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can detach a material from this card instead. So I forgot about this part. So anyhow, now I'm continuing to play, and he now uses the the whole card, which is searchable off of Rafflesia, which is already a card that I like, so that's cool. So this one can destroy cards, and he doesn't destroy the Meek, which is a mistake. So he's thinking if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Meek from your deck. And then if you want, you can level modulate. But he already Dwellered me in the beginning. So he should have just also popped the Meek, because I think he could have done it twice, right? Because it's you target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of Ryzeal XYZ monsters you control, right? This is Ryzeal and this is Ryzeal. So he could have popped both, and this wouldn't have triggered. Anyhow, so this is now the last thing that I had to really force interactions. And the reason that I'm showing this to you is to show you what Mannadium like can do playing through certain interruptions, and why it's kind of hard to like let the deck go. So anyhow, I destroy the meat special in the Room Heart. I can't use it because I'm under Dweller, and I actually don't remember if I had a better target or not because I'm not playing a lot of targets. I don't remember which version of the deck I was playing at this time, but the Samsara does not count as Starfrost in the hand. It's only on field and engrave. So I actually can't use the imaginings right now. But anyhow, so I bring out the Astrolaud and I go to pop, and then I'm like, oh wait, he can just attach that. So yeah, and then actually, I don't know if I caught what popped that, because wasn't this once per turn? Once per turn, yeah, he already used that one. And then, is it something in the grave? Wait, is it gonna, I feel like not everything is in the log. So I activate the Astrolaud and I target this, and he, wait, what is happening? When your opponent activates a card effect, you can attach the target. But he already used that, didn't he? Isn't that once per turn? This is not once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card, then target one card on the field, destroy it. You can only use each of the following effects of detonator once per turn. If this card... Wait, what? If an XYZ monster you control, we destroy about... That's crazy. This card is crazy. I was like, there's no way that's more than once per turn. Okay, so I didn't know that either. Anyhow, so I had banished materials to be able to bring out the Astrolaud, and so now I have a banished Samsara, or sorry, it counts as Starfrost that I can shuffle back to make this card. I'm not playing the Axel Dragon, by the way. And here, wait, did I make a mistake here? So, yeah, so he just had like a million different pops on that I didn't understand. And so now I'm just left with a cross sheep on field, and I needed one more push to continue playing, and I don't have it. But anyhow, maybe this gameplay will show you that the Mannadium engine itself is actually quite good at playing through interruptions, and it's also one of the reasons why it's important that you play the deck as like a breaker type deck, and you really maximize on the engine that you fit in here. So anyhow, my final thoughts on just coping through trying to put modern engines into a deck that's been honestly not power crept. Like the actual mechanics of these cards are extremely solid. These cards are really good. They work very, very well with each other. And even the field spell stuff works really well with the wanted stuff. It also still works well with Magician's Souls. It's just that there's not really that much space, and so you don't need to put in a win more card if you're already going over 50, and you really want to also be drawing your breakers like to start with. You know, you want to have like the droplet in your hand, for example, when your turn starts. You don't want to be drawing into the droplet. Just with like the way that the game is right now, where there are like a bunch of negates and pops and stuff with like Desiree and Varudris and all that. So maybe there is a way to play this deck differently. Maybe you do have to go back to the weird or like the synchro build where actually you make Chaos Angel going first to protect you from monster effects, and you just leave that on field. And then you try to kill on the following turn. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if there's still a use for Jet Synchron in the deck off of the original Sinful Spoils, because you're playing the Wanted engine. And it feels kind of bad that you don't have a way to search these cards. Although being able to play, I only have 2 right here, but you could play like 3 Deception, 3 Wanted, 3 Witch, and you do have like pretty good chances of seeing one of those cards. It's very easy to make Closed Heaven. You really don't miss the bodies for that, but I feel like the deck doesn't really have much of a game plan going first. So yeah, I might try the old school like synchro version with no Fenrir or anything. And see if maybe that's better, but I just don't know if there's space for it. So anyhow, thanks for watching.